Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Linnell. This is my husband Ibrahim joining us again for yet another video. This has been by far one of the most requested videos since our move to Canada. Everybody wants to know how exactly we were able to migrate from St. Lucia to Canada. So today we're gonna do like basically a story time and tell you guys about how our journey, why we decided to move to Canada. I've seen a few people ask why Canada, and like just what our process was like. So if you watched any previous videos, you know both my husband and I, we can chat for a while. So this video will be long, so get a drink, get some popcorn or whatever and sit back and relax. If you have any questions at all, I think we will probably do like a follow-up video and a Q&A.
Yeah, so you can put your questions down in the comment section and then we will look through them, the most common ones, and then we'll respond to some of them. That's where we might probably get into specific details, because if we go into like super duper details for everything, it'll be too long. So we'll just talk about our journey and how the process was. So
but before we move on, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. So where do we begin? Let's start from the beginning.
It's just the question of how did the entire idea of moving to Canada come about.
Well, I think we should probably give them a little bit of background first, especially if you're new and you've never followed us before. My husband and I, we are both medical doctors.
Right.
We studied in Cuba. It was a fun time. That's where we met and got married. And in St. Lucia, a tiny little Caribbean island, there are no teaching hospitals, and so it's not possible to become a doctor there.
Do any postgraduate. Well, yeah, it's not possible to even be a
no, you can't be a doctor. You can start there. I think there are quite a few colleges where you can do like the first 2 or 3 pre-clinical years, but then in order for you to finish, you have to go either to Jamaica, Trinidad, the UK, the US. There are options, but you can't finish. And then for postgrad, like if you want to become a family medicine doctor, if you want to be a pediatrician, an OBGYN, a surgeon, you definitely have to
leave the island.
And so when we came back from Cuba, that was our first.
Yeah, we were young, we always thought that if we had to do anything, that I always used to joke and say the only way up was out, and every single specialist in St. Lucia has left the island to go pursue some sort of postgraduate specialization, whether it's clinical specialization or in a master's capacity or whatever. So that was the pursuit.
So our journey started just trying to figure out where is it that we wanted to go specialize. We looked at various options, the UK, the US, we even probably dabbled in Australia, Spain.
But it was there at that time. There was not we were not looking at too wide of options. We just like learned and did research about the different options, and it was during that research that we found out that, for example, most people don't know this, but Canada operates differently even from these other first world countries that we've mentioned.
So in the UK, Australia, the US, if you are not a citizen, if you're not a permanent resident, you graduated from a medical school outside of that place, you can still go into the country, do residency, and be able to practice medicine there as an IMG, an international medical graduate.
The residency we're referring to is postgraduate clinical studies as a doctor. Right, it's different from permanent residency, which most people are familiar with, right? So that's what it's called when you study to specialize as a doctor. It's called residency. So that's what we're referring to. So in like you said, in those other countries that's possible, but in Canada you cannot have foreign doctors come in and work, because when you're doing residency, you're actually working, you get paid, it's a paid position, and at the same time you are working under more experienced doctors, and then you kind of learning like an apprenticeship kind of. So that's not possible in Canada. So when we were doing our research, it was just that Canada was like, oh, you can't come in here to do any extra thing, you need to be a citizen and a permanent resident. And that's when we started doing the research, and it was just like, okay, how is it possible to be a permanent resident
in Canada?
And that was when like the whole Pandora's box open just by a simple Google search, how to get permanent residency in Canada.
And Ibrahim is that when Ibrahim does a deep dive, Ibrahim does
it's not a deep dive. I call it a feasibility study, which is step 1. Right? Step one is determining how feasible and how possible this is and assessing your realistic chances. So we did that. I did that for many different places, and we did that for Canada. And in Canada, it was like, okay, this is possible, but like you need this, this, and this. And I was like, okay, how do you get X, Y, Z? And it was like, okay, how do you get permanent residency? And just by plugging that into the computer, went down a rabbit hole, different websites, and they were like, oh, that's easy. You could just be invited to come to Canada. So this was way back before COVID.
Yeah, by the way, this was 2019.
This was way back. This was 2019, ending of 2019.
We had just come back from Canada, from Cuba.
Yeah, not so long. It was like a year.
So we were looking into, okay, what's next
was the
for
next
our
step.
career, you know.
So, you know, I remember that night, you were at work, and I was doing the research, and I was just going down this rabbit hole, learning about the CRS scoring system, the express entry, and then there was a website where you could find out if you're eligible. You know, put in my details. They told me, okay, you're eligible, XYZ. 15 minutes later, I get a call from Canada. I see British Columbia, and an immigration consultant, an agent, calls me, tells me I'm eligible, that we should do this now, we should do this today. I just have to pay $700 to register, because if not, I'll lose the opportunity, XYZ. Now, I just done the research, and I just found out that you don't necessarily have to pay to enter the express entry system. So I was like, okay, first of all, I've not even discussed with my wife yet, and then he was going on about, oh, you can come to Canada and work and make lots of money, and I had to be like, hey, hold on, I can't work in Canada because as a doctor, there are processes that I need to go through. And that was one of the first times that I realized that even some of the immigration consultants at the time, I don't know, maybe now it's more common knowledge, but like they were portraying it in more simpler terms than it actually was. And so I kind of knew that, you know, it was a regulated profession and there are certain steps that you have to take. But he was trying to tell me and get me all excited and be like, hey, you know, you can come and make 6-figure income and all of those things. And I had to be like, okay. So when I told you about it, in fact, that was like, one of the...
This is a scam. I was like, this is a scam. No way a first world country is just going to make you put in data, give you points, and then do a point system and then give you points. I was like, this is a scam. Like, this is a scam. Like, this doesn't make sense.
She didn't believe that express entry actually existed. And mind you, this was 2019 going to 2020, so express entry had existed about 5 years already. There were people who had already moved to Canada through express entry system, but still, it was not.
It was new to us.
It was new to us. Yeah,
I had never heard anything like that.
Like, I'm sure it must be new to some people, because some people really found out that some of these things are possible because we moved. So
I thought it sounded very scamish to me, but that is how it started. So Ibrahim here did his feasibility study, which is quite thorough, and I'm glad he did it quite thoroughly, because now we have a resource that we can offer to some of you if you're interested in. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. But he did a feasibility study and determined that, yeah, it is possible that we can move to Canada as permanent residents.
That's one of the most important steps, like that feasibility study. And we have compiled a document, right, that helps you to know what are the different things that you should be able to take into account if that's something that you want. You can download it for free. It's like a guide, a checklist, a roadmap, if you will, to all the different processes, because people have asked, how have you done it? And a lot of people have asked. So we've kind of just put together the steps of our journey and place it together in the document. You can download it. The link will be in the description. It will also be in the comment section. And if you need more detailed information, there is also like an actual guide apart from the checklist that goes into way more detail. It has links to the government websites, so you can actually have up-to-date information. You can find out how much it costs to do the whole process and all of those things. So there's various ways, apparently, you know, to come to Canada as a permanent resident, but there is a particular method that's, you know, like one of the main ways of economic immigration, and that's through the express entry system. It's designed as a system. It's a way of selecting people. So what it does is, everybody gets a score. So you're scored based on your age, you're scored based on your work experience. Foreign work experience gives you points, Canadian work experience gives you points. Different factors that they assess your English language. You have to do an English language test. Scores, you are assessed on your educational level. If you're in high school, you get a certain score. If you have a degree, a professional degree, master's, PhD, you get different scores. And so they tabulate all those scores, and then you're in the pool.
They score you based on everything he just mentioned. So they take into account your age, your education level, how much work experience you have, and then based on all of that put together, they give you a score. And so when you enter the pool, it means that you are among a whole group of people who want to be invited to become permanent residents in Canada. And so what they do is that they have, before it used to be weekly, but now it's very sporadic, I would say.
Well, before it used to be like every 2 weeks. Now it has kind of fall back into that rhythm. It has gone back to like a regular schedule.
Yeah, so they do draws, which means that they say, okay, the score is 250. It's a random example, which means that everybody who has the score of 250 and above gets an invitation to apply for permanent residency. It's literally that simple.
It's literally that. So what a feasibility study is it's a free. You can just go and check what will be your score, and then the next logical thing to do is what scores are they putting out, to invite people. What's the historical reference? Because you don't know, things could change down the line, but you go through previous scores and see, and then you check to see if you stand a chance. And when we had done ours at that time, it was like we stood a very good chance. Our scores were high, and they were actually going to go up, because as we had more work experience and gained more work experience, we were going to get more points. So it was feasible. It checked all the boxes, we were eligible, etc., etc.
So we said, okay, we're going
to do this.
This was when?
So this was now in 2020, and when we had done the complete study and everything, and put together all the different parts.
By the way, for us, it was like a long journey to actually get everything ready, because
that's when we started to get everything ready in 2020. So that's when we started to now get the different police clearance from the different places.
Thing is, ours is a little bit more complicated, because we had our medical degrees in Spanish, so that has to be translated. We needed a police record from Cuba, which also so we had to request it from Cuba, have it come from Cuba to St. Lucia. If you know anything about Cuba, that was not that was not an easy feat.
Let us just say overall that took 2 years
to get it.
Actually,
wasn't it like 9 months?
No, it took longer. I think I didn't get it until 2021.
No, but we got it in 9 months,
and it had an error.
So we had to do it again. So
it had a mistake, so we had to repeat it again.
And then it cost money as well. Then doctors are a bit different from, let's say, if you have like a degree in accounting. So
so you have to verify your credentials. But if I think there's 3 professions: architects, doctors, and pharmacists.
I thought it was lawyers.
No, I think it's pharmacists. Lawyers probably have their own process, but for the immigration process itself, you have to go through a different credentialing process.
And mind you guys, all of this thing costs like money at every step of the process.
But mind you, for us it was costly because of certain things. One, we are medical doctors, which means the route for the getting the credential assessment is far more expensive. It's about 6 times or 5 times more expensive
than if you had
have a regular degree. So that's one, and it's times 2, and it takes a longer time, because it took like 6 months or so to verify, because you send it, they verify with the American ECFMG.
We had to send it back.
Oh yeah, because of other things like you have to. It's a whole process, right? And so that part took a little bit longer.
That part took a little longer.
Then another thing as well was that you have to do an English exam. But in our case, we live in St. Lucia, where you cannot do the English exam at all.
In our country.
But we were okay with this, because this was all planned, because this is the other benefits I spoke about in this document. That when you do the feasibility study, you establish a timeline. So we knew that this was not a process that we were going to do and in 2 months, in 6 months, we were going to move to Canada. This was a process that we were starting because in 2 years, in 3 years, we wanted Canada to be an option. Our projection was about 3 years. This was in 2020. So all we were doing was just, laying the groundwork. And one of the things that I had realized anyways was that even if we had gone any other place to pursue any other additional thing, we will still needed some of these things anyways in different areas. So it was just trying to just lay the groundwork and starting from then. And that's one of the reasons why I always tell people, you have to strike while the iron is hot. You start and just start doing your things, because you never.
You're getting ahead of yourself, because this was around COVID time.
No, we started this before COVID.
Okay.
And then
then the last step was to do our IELTS exam.
That was what was missing. Like all the other steps, we started the ball rolling. Like they were not in our hands as yet, but everything was starting, and then we had to travel to go and do our IELTS,
which we did. It was fun. We went to New York.
First of all, COVID happened.
But wasn't that in the early stages though?
This was 2020, right? We were supposed to travel ending or mid 2020, around between September, October, November of 2020. But then COVID happened, and
I got pregnant.
No, you were pregnant already. That's why we couldn't go earlier.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I'm track of the timeline.
Yeah. So that's why we couldn't go earlier, because we couldn't travel at the time. But so it was like this had to be like the final 6 months in 2020. But then COVID happened in March, and the entire country went in shutdown. And then when we were supposed to travel in October, November to go to Trinidad, Trinidad's borders were closed.
That was the whole thing. We were supposed to travel to Trinidad.
Oh yeah, it is.
But then Trinidad's border was closed. We spent like time because it was
we had actually paid. We had paid for the. We had done everything.
Just the IELTS
not the tickets.
exam.
We had actually paid for the exam. But then there was a resurgence in COVID. And Trinidad's borders were closed. So nobody could go in, nobody could go out. They had their citizens out, you remember? Even their own citizens. We had people from Trinidad in St. Lucia who couldn't travel back to Trinidad. So it was like we had to apply, get a refund.
Let's go another route. So we decided to go to New York.
We decided to go to the States, because at that time the States was not... The States was not closed off. So we just...
I think you just needed to show that you were vaccinated.
You're vaccinated. So we went to the States instead.
We made a little family trip. We traveled to New York. We did the test. But then we also drove to not New Jersey. Well, we had to go to New Jersey, but
we drove across like several states.
It was a whole thing. It was really fun. I remember thinking, wow, this is nice. It was fun. So we went to do IELTS. We did really well. We had we had the top scores that you needed to get the maximum points, and even the bonus, right? So we come back to St. Lucia and we enter the pool. And we're happy, right? Because our points are really high, and it feels like the next draw will probably get.
But by this time, there was already slight apprehension, because by this time, I think the time when we did express entry, I think this was in 2021 now. They were no longer doing. They stopped in 2021 when we entered the pool. That's when they stopped doing draws for outside of Canada, general draws. They stopped doing general draws.
Almost 2 years, right?
About 18 months.
Yeah.
For a whole 18 months, no draws. So
we were so sad.
So now we had done all of these things, and we had, everything was set. We had gone into the pool, and then there were no draws. So again, we started looking at other options.
Yeah, we did.
Plan B, Plan C, Plan D.
I would say FGH. We looked into
different places that we could possibly.
Interestingly, around that time as well, I would say we were not so focused on career.
So what happened after that 18 months? After the 18 months, Canada
expires.
No, your English exam expires after 2 years. But after 18 months, Canada announced that they're going to start doing the draws again. But because they are taking so long to do the draws, there had been accumulation of people in the express entry pool. The scores were super high. They were now in the 500s. And
plus
now
our score had gone down, because
our score went down.
Whenever
it went up, and then started going back down
because
again.
Of turning 30.
Yeah. So So by that time, when we again plugged in the feasibility calculator, it was like, nah, this is not worth pursuing. So around this time, this was around that we dropped everything. So by around late 2022, I was kind of hoping that they will do like a big draw, you know, end of year. That didn't happen, and I was like, okay, this is not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And because our scores were about to, you know, expire. So the question was, do we repeat the English exam and thing? And it was not worth it at the time. So we left the pool.
Canada,
yeah. So we forgot about Canada,
and we started looking at
other options. And again, at that time we had
a shift.
We had a shift in terms of our ideals and what it is that we wanted for our family and career, and what we wanted life to look like. And this happens because, you know, when you fresh off medical school, you come, it's been a year, 2 years, you've been working, but then by that time we'd been working for a couple of years. We had seen different things.
Out, plain and simple. Because here's the thing, we worked in a hospital, both of us worked in a hospital setting, which means that we were working Monday to Friday 8 to 4, but in addition to that we were also doing 24, not even 24, always like 28, 32-hour shifts. So we would leave for work on Monday morning, one of us, and then we would not be back until Tuesday afternoon.
Or leave on Sunday, go to work on Sunday morning at 8 and not come back until Monday at 4.
Yeah, and it was always
PM.
one or the other. So either I was at work or he was at work.
Yeah, or if I'm coming, she's leaving.
And then, you know, it was just a lot. I personally was burnt out. And also I had 2 pregnancies in 2 years. I was missing my babies.
Yeah, we had both girls at the time.
I was missing my babies. And I remember this feeling, like, I remember one of the first times that I left my baby girl. We had hired a nanny, and I was thinking to myself, I'm leaving my child with a stranger, because at that time we didn't know anybody like to take care of our child, so we had to hire somebody that we didn't know,
a nanny.
And I remember thinking, I'm leaving my child with a stranger to go help other women take care of their babies. And it was just the
weird
ickiest feeling for me. I did not like it. I was just getting very fed up of the job, because it felt like we were just, you know, like
over
on a rat
like
race.
a treadmill.
Either he was gone or I was gone. We were always alone because somebody else was at the job, and then our kids were always shuffling between, like, okay, hey, you know, there's a fever at school, but both of us are at work. And it's not like, you know, you work in an office, you can just go pick up the child. We were at a hospital dealing with children, you know, so we were like, hey, can you pick up our kids for
it was stressful.
So like we were like slowly realizing, like, this is not what we want for our life.
And for context, again, this is 170,000 population St. Lucia Island, in which there are 2 major public hospitals and 1 private hospital. There's not much options in terms of work as a medical doctor. Like, you could maybe switch hospitals or switch jobs and things could be better. It's literally you know, the same system
working in a hospital had that,
you know, kind of
schedule. The only other option was maybe opening your own office, which came with its own
set of challenges. So for me, it was, for me, one of the things that became challenging for me was that I began to feel like I was a hypocrite, and I was the one working. I was working the longest hours
because he was in surgery.
I was in the surgical department at the time.
He had surgeries for what, 12 hours?
And so it was
ridiculous.
It began to feel like I will go to work and I would meet these people and I will give them all this life advice and tell them about their eating habits, their sleeping habits, about how they had to slow down, you know, in life, and you know, make sure that they look after the ones that they love, and all of those things. And I felt like I wasn't doing that, you know, like I was always gone, I was always away. There were times where I didn't even have chance to exercise because
or eat sometimes.
I remember the first time I had a gastritis pain. I had worked 24 hours, and then in the morning I started rounds, didn't have breakfast because I'd been up all night. And there was a whole set of things working that made me realize, okay, I don't necessarily want this. So even before coming to Canada, one of the big steps that I had made in my life, to kind of just have it on a path and have it in a way and construct it in a way that I want and create a balance that was much needed, was that I quit.
Well, actually, both of us, we quit.
Well, you switched and you started doing like a shift system.
Yeah.
So that was better.
Much
and I just left, which was scary because it's not like I had another job lined up. I just left, and I was like, I had given myself a time frame. At this time, we had looked at other options, and at this time, we began opening up to not just clinical postgraduate options.
Yeah.
Because clinical postgraduate options are the most demanding. So we started looking at non-clinical postgraduate options.
Because I remember right around that time, since we no longer thought about Canada, we were like, okay, where else can we go to specialize? And then around that time, I was like, I don't know if I even want to specialize because... if both of us go into residency, it's just going to be the same thing, working 24 hours, 30 hours. And then if we go to a cut, which we would have had to if we had gone anywhere to specialize, the States, anywhere.
You don't have family.
You don't have family there. And so it's like, what's going to happen to the kids? Like, where are we going to drop the kids with strangers for hours at a time? Like I just lost that desire to like specialize. And so I was like, okay, maybe we can do like what you were saying, like a postgraduate degree,
but in
like
non-clinical
maybe like
setting.
Public health or health administration or whatever the case is. And so that started our journey into looking into other
that started the journey into looking at other considerations.
And then
we circle back
just now I just wanted to say that timing is everything. Like sometimes things don't work out and you're so bummed out, you don't know the bigger picture. And for us, we were really disappointed that that
didn't work out.
What we tried didn't work out. And looking back now, we're kind of thankful that it didn't work out at the time that it did, because if it had, we probably would have come in here and like just jumped into trying to get into residency, me trying to be probably an OBGYN, I don't know, family doctor or something, and then my husband doing the same thing. And I feel like we would have been in a different headspace and our family would have been in a different
and the thing with that sometimes is that what I've realized, and again, these things change you. When you're a doctor and you have the privilege of having people expose their personal lives to you, you learn. And you're not the same person. You learn from all these experiences, deathbed conversations, kind of stuff. So sometimes, you have all this general sensation of being unhappy or feeling like something is missing, and you don't necessarily know what it was. And I think that we were lucky that we were able to pinpoint that this is what we wanted to prioritize in our family, that we wanted to prioritize family, and that having other things or other areas of our lives affected was making us unhappy. And again, to your point, for example, I don't think we mentioned this, but when we were supposed to do the first time we were supposed to do the IELTS exam in Trinidad and the borders were closed and we couldn't travel, it turns out that I had actually booked the wrong exam.
Oh yeah,
I had booked IELTS academic. So if we had, and again, you look at these things and you look back and you're like, wow, sometimes God just protects you and you don't know. Because I remember I was so mad when that had happened and we couldn't leave because
it felt like it was setting us back.
Because that was the time as well that St. Lucia had put a memo. I had submitted to go on vacation at that time, to take vacation to go to the exam, and before even Trinidad closed the borders, the first thing was that St. Lucia said that they cancelling all vacations and all of these things for doctors. So I was like, and then it turns out if we had gone at that time that we wanted to go, it would have been a waste, because there's two types of IELTS, the English exam, at least the one we did. There's the academic version and there's the general version, and we had at that time, for immigration
purposes, you
need general, you don't need academic.
I think we didn't know that at the time, and we had booked academic.
We had booked academic. Academic you use for like if you want to study and postgraduate and all of those things. So basically God is good, and sometimes his no's or his not yet are really for a greater purpose. So we started looking into other things that we wanted to do. We considered getting masters in other places. I think we even
sort out like scholarships in Japan.
Yeah, we
and all
looked
of
at
those places.
different, like all over the
All
world.
over the world, literally.
And then we came back and we were like, but we could do Canada. And then we were like, well, you know, we could just do these things online. And then we just kind of be like, this was 2023 now, right?
This was 2023.
And we were like, yeah, that's last year. we were like,
you know what?
We took a trip, you know, we went on vacation, traveled to West Africa.
Oh yeah, if you want to see those
If
vlogs.
you want to see those vlogs are awesome. Some of our best videos. Sometimes we just watch it together as a family because the girls like to watch it.
So we visited his home, well, not his home country, but it's complicated anyways.
Watch it and you'll get it.
So we visited Africa and all of that, whatever.
Yeah, and then we were like, cool, I quit my job last year, March. I quit my job,
thinking,
and I was trying to do something else. You know, I started doing like private practice, working with other doctors. I didn't open my own practice because it's like super complicated. So I was just working in practice with other doctors. It was very slow, but you know, it was something building.
Nice. We had a lot of time together.
We had a lot of time.
And we were like, oh, this is nice. You know, like maybe we could just stay here
and just try and see how
like
things
a master's program online, and so that was our line of thought. And then
category draw started happening. And I remember the first healthcare category draw, I believe was the end of June 28th, thereabouts. They did a draw. I can't remember how I found out about it because I was not even like super looking at the time because
it was probably a YouTube video or something. Because we were subscribed to like the Canada immigration things.
And
so
then
maybe a YouTube video.
And then I saw that the scores were low.
So they had category draw workers, meaning that if your work experience your profession fell into a particular category, like so there was
6.
There was 6 of them. There's healthcare workers, like
agriculture,
nurses, doctors. There's agriculture. There is STEM.
STEM. That's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. There is what's that one I just mentioned? Transport.
Yeah, transport.
And then there is French.
And then another one. But anyways,
trade occupations.
We fell into the healthcare worker draw, obviously. And when they did the draw and we saw the score and then we calculated what our score would have been, it was like,
the feasibility was the highest it had ever been. It was like this was possible, and we had everything already, and the only thing missing to do was to just do IELTS. Now, mind you, months before we had even explored possibility of coming as a student, because remember we said exploring possibility of doing postgraduate non-clinical, like a master's and stuff.
Yeah, we looked into
that. But when we assess that and did again, you're gonna be tired of this one. Doing the feasibility and the risk assessment, if you will. We did the risk assessment. It was just too much for us because we realized that one person will be studying and that person will be paying international student fees, which is already a lot. And then you have only one of us working full time, and then the other person that's studying will only be able to work part time. And so it was like the financial burden. It was like it didn't make sense because again we wanted a certain setting and a certain lifestyle. So it didn't make sense coming to Canada's sake, just to come and start doing the same thing that we avoided in St. Lucia. So we had scrapped that idea as well. We scrapped
the student route, and then, like we said, the healthcare workers draw came in, and we were like, you know what, this seems like a real possibility. We prayed about it, like, okay, is this God opening a new door? Should we? To me, it felt
like it was, because it was like we had tried all the things we could possibly have tried. You'd done all the things correctly, and it didn't happen. And it was like, okay, God was like, okay, here's my turn. When you think it's impossible, here is a method. And I remember thinking, well, all I remember thinking was, we have to act fast because this is a good opportunity.
And that's exactly what we did.
if like like a ton of people think these same ideas, the scores could change because the things are so fluid. You don't know the immigration situation is this certain way, and then in a couple of months or a year's time it will change. So we were like, let's act fast. All we needed to do was to just do our English exams again. So we booked our English exam in a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks
this was
after
July. We did our exam in July.
No, we did it in August.
Really? Oh yeah.
We booked in
July. We did the exam
in July. We booked our flights. We had to travel to Trinidad and Tobago,
which is a vlog,
and it was good because it was around the time of our anniversary.
Yeah.
So
we didn't have time to get time off from work.
You spend the money already. You're traveling already. You might as well, Did that trip. We had like 1 week to study for the English exams, but we took vacation.
Which, by the way, some people make that mistake and think that it's an English exam, so they don't need to study for it. And it's not like it's a chemistry exam, you need to study for it. But with exam taking is a thing. You could know the information, but if you don't know how to take an exam well, then you could fail the exam, not for lack of knowledge, but just not having exam taking skills. So if you're doing the IELTS, I would definitely recommend take some time out to do some practice tests. To especially to
familiarize yourself with the structure of the exam and all of those things.
Because the scores matter.
Yeah, the scores matter. So we did it again.
We did it.
We got good scores, excellent scores, top points again, and then we entered the pool.
And then they stopped doing
By this time, mind you, by the time we did our English exam in August, early August, between July that we just found out, they had already done 2 healthcare draws, and they were doing draws. This was the time when IELTS last year, they were doing draws like 4 or 5 draws. IRCC. They were doing like 4 or 5 draws in a month. And then we entered category, and we entered the pool, and then we didn't hear anything for healthcare for 2 months.
And we were like, oh boy,
what's going on? And then the next draw.
When was that, in September?
No, we entered in August. That was all the way ending of October.
Oh yeah, okay.
Ending of October.
We did our IELTS exam in August. We got an invitation to apply in
October, ending of October.
But we had everything. When I tell you we had everything ready.
Everything was ready.
Everything ready. Even the job letters. Ibrahim had drafted job letters.
So the job letters is the letter of employment that you need from your employer. It has certain criteria. It should have your job position, your job description, all of those things.
So he had it drafted out. So all he had to do was go to the employer and be like, hey, I need this letter. It needs this. Here's a draft. You can just literally
you can use that draft. You could do what you want with it, but it needs to have these information.
So everything was ready. We entered the pool, and if you're looking for a resource on what exactly the job letter should have, we have a book that we have linked in the
it's on Amazon.
It's called
The Complete Guide to Express Entry.
Anyways, we do have a book that my lovely husband wrote that is very, very, very compact. It has a lot of information in terms of all of the steps you need to follow. Of course, there's a disclaimer: we are not by any means immigration consultants. This is not legal advice. This is what we did, our journey, and I'm sure that it would be a good resource for you if you are interested. It's on Amazon.
Yeah, because we had years, we had years to watch the immigration lawyers and everything. What I like about the book, and this was literally all the resources that I used to do our application.
So tell us some of the things you have in there. I know, for example, you have templates for the job letters.
Right. So it's little things. Let's go. It's hard to go into too much detail, but because it's over 50-60 pages long, but it's little details. So for example, after you receive the invitation to apply, you now have to apply for permanent residency. That application for permanent residency is where you have to get into the fine details. That's where you have to actually show and demonstrate all those things from your work. For example, I was speaking to somebody that just recently submitted the application. They sent me some of the documents. I looked at it, and automatically I just picked up, your police certificate has not been scanned in color. Just something as simple as that. And it says so in the it's like one of the things it says. It's like your police certificates absolutely has to be scanned in color. So we give pointers here and there, but even more importantly is that what I tried to do was, again, this is a compilation of resources. So yes, in the book I'll talk about, okay, this was how I did my stuff, but it includes links. So it's not going to be obsolete, it's not going to be out of date, because it's just a compilation of links to the official website. And it has what I call the golden link. For me, that golden link, I saw it once. I was following very top immigration lawyers. I'm going to mention names because I like them. I'm not endorsing them, but I like the information. They have it on YouTube. It's free. Mark Holt from the Canadian Immigration Institute, I believe, but you could just Google or put Mark Holt, Holthe. He's really good. Information he gives. There is also a gentleman called Ask Kubeir. He is Indian, of the Indian descent. Very good information, very succinct.
So he has all of these resources.
All of these resources are there, and more in the book.
And if you cannot tell, my husband is very thorough, and he does a really good job of.
I didn't talk about the golden link. The golden link is hard to find. It's a document within the website in the immigration IRCC Canada that is principally is for the immigration officers. Essentially, it's what the officers look at when they assessing your application. It's how the officer is going to look at your application and check everything. So having that, it's like it's very, very detailed. So
yeah,
I mean,
so all of that is in our book, and it is in the description box. If you're interested, click on the link and let us know what you guys think.
So we submitted
in November,
ending of November, and then we didn't hear anything,
which was the worst part for me. The worst part.
That was the best part for me, because it was like, oh.
No, because I feel like, I don't know, like I just wanted to know, like, because when you submit an application for PR, you can be denied. So they can say, oh, sorry, this is wrong with your application, that is wrong, or we don't deem you fit or whatever, and they can deny it. So it's like, I felt like I was not in St. Lucia because I was preparing to go to Canada, but then I was not in Canada, and then my mind was not in St. Lucia. So I was neither here nor there, and it was really hard for me, especially because like there was no indication, you know, like if things were going well. If like you just don't hear anything, it's just radio.
We didn't hear anything for 2 months, and then in February, they got back to us and told us. It felt like this start process, like you're in a queue, and once they start processing, it was like, because within 2 months, like within 2 months, they started processing in February. They requested medicals.
November, in the last day November, and in February, I think.
Yeah, so nothing in December, nothing in January. On February, early February, they asked us, sent a letter to do medicals, sent a letter to do the biometrics, to take photo, fingerprints, and those stuff.
By that time, we were excited because it was like,
so it was done, and then
when did we hear back? Like in March, right?
In March. So early March, they requested further documents for us. That's when usually they will get back to you and be like, okay, your stuff is accepted. But then they requested further documents for us, which we knew that it was your passport. We needed to. One of the passports was. At the time we submitted, it was fine, but by that time it was closer to 6 months expiry,
which we had.
So we had already started.
I
had anticipated because again, you know what the immigration officers are going to be looking for,
because of this golden link.
Because no, for true, you know all of these things, and that's what the lawyers use. And I saw it. I searched it. There was anyways, but so we had that process was already there. So we just put in the documents, and then within like 2 weeks before the ending of March.
In March, we heard
they gave us they sent the PPR, the passport request letter.
Yeah, and that means
like it's basically send us your passport with stamp your visa. So
we were so excited.
It was exciting, but then we had put ourselves in a bit of a time crunch. And the reason being that when you receive your documents, you're going to receive, when you send in your passport, you're going to receive your confirmation of permanent residency.
You looking for Daddy?
Yeah.
It is here. The package has arrived.
Did I blow bubble?
I don't think you can blow bubbles. You can try. Good.
Huh? Everywhere have do not bend. Do not bend. Ne pas plier. inside of it.
Let's look.
Do not bend.
Do not bend, okay?
Yes, we get it. That confirmation of permanent residency is not saying that you're a permanent resident yet. Until you land in Canada at an airport, you present that document to a border official, and then they actually go through the documents and everything. And one of the few things that they request for sometimes is a proof of funds, because you have to show that you have money. It's your money, you're not giving it to them, but you have to show that you have enough money to survive when you come into Canada.
They didn't ask us for that.
They didn't even ask us for that. Here's the thing, the COPR is valid for 1 year from the date which you did your medicals, which for us was just the previous month. So we could technically have traveled to Canada until next year, but we didn't.
This year?
Yeah, from this year all the way to next year. Like, you can still come anytime.
Okay.
So some people feel like, oh, it's a rush. No, you don't necessarily have to rush. And one of the things we didn't want to do was arrive in Canada
During winter.
It was like, if we have to go to Canada, the best time we will want to go preferably is spring, or to go in the summer, or to come in the
And
summer.
when I tell you, this guy is thorough. Like, he was even considering, because apparently there's like a job cycle when people hire employees. So we were looking at, okay, should we come at that time? There's also like a time frame where it's easier to get housing than other times.
So the thing is, there is cycles. Every country, every city has its ups and downs, and in the market and everything. And when you're coming from outside of Canada, you're coming into North America, there is cycles in the market. For example, you look at real estate market, there's periods and months in the year where it's more active than other months, and all of those things. So one of the things that we had considered was that if you come at a time where everybody else is coming, which was usually summer, ending of summer, we came at the end of spring, which was usually summer or ending of summer. That's when you have international students also coming in, so housing is a little bit difficult to find. Can be, again, this was all theoretical. And it was theoretical in my mind. I ran it by some of the people when we came. I spoke to some people and they were like, yes, that is smart. I was like, well, I didn't know. I was just going based off trends, because you could study, look at the markets and all of those things, and you could kind of study the trends, and you see and you know that at the time of springtime, like ending of May, that's when most people will have finished the school year. So most people are traveling, they're going back, or they're leaving, or they vacant. People are moving during spring. So you have more possibilities of getting like a good deal around that time. I also thought that jobs as well.
They even told us that people offer like deals for like if you rent an apartment, you might get internet free or something at specific times, but then like end of summer you don't get it as much because more people want apartments.
So, I mean, in conclusion, to conclude, the part, and that was one of the last things I spoke about as well in the document, is that if you have already gone through your PR process, and you've gotten your IT, or you're in the process of applying, one of the things that you have to really begin to consider now is where you're going to settle in Canada, as in where you're going to land. And one of the things that I have learned from lots of people who have done this journey before us, because again, this is not like we come up with all of these things, all the things are brand new. Like I said, these resources are out there, the resources are available, they're just disjointed. So what we've tried to do is just put it together in one place, where you can have it as holistically as possible. But it's out there, right? People have done these things before, and people have gone through those experiences, and it's very important to consider and to seriously analyze the reasons why it is that you're going to live where you're going to live, in terms of your choice of province, your choice of city, and all of those things. It's going to be something that's going to be very specific to different people, based on your interest, based on your job profile, and all of those things. So that's something to take into account. And speaking of things that are varied, you will realize that we have not really mentioned in terms of how much it will cost to apply for PR. And the reason, because of that, like we've said, there are certain things that's specific to different people. So what we've done is we've highlighted all the different things where you spend money.
He's talking about the book. So in the book, there is a section dedicated to like cost.
So the cost. So you have all of the. It's like a buffet. It will not apply to everybody. For example, not everybody needs to travel to go and do IELTS. So the cost of traveling for other people, it's negligent. It's negligible. They don't have to do that. Not everybody has to translate their documents from one language to another. So the costs are going to vary depending on your personal. Sometimes you want a one blanket fits all answer, but it really sometimes depends on your particular situation. And in terms of the application for permanent residency, there is an application fee that's non-refundable, and there is a part of the fee that is actually refundable, which means that if you're refused or your application doesn't go through for any reason, you will be refunded that money back.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was our PR journey. It was a roller coaster.
It was a roller coaster filled with ups and downs, with yeses, no's, and not yets, and all of that. But we're here now.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that we came when we did. I trust that God knows our path and He knows when is right for us and all of that thing. So, conclusion, check out the description box. We will have linked one. We'll have the Upro app, which is the app that we use that we think is really good for settlement services. If you want to talk to an immigration consultant or you have any questions, you can use the Upro app. I'll have it linked. Also, we have the checklist, which is a free download if you want to look at it. It just has all of the
steps that you need to take, the roadmap itself.
And then if you want like a more detailed version, I would say this is more for persons who are either planning to go to do the PR or they're
already they're already in the express entry pool
and they want to submit their documents. I think it's really good for like just and we didn't mention, but we never used like
as an immigration consultant.
Lawyer. We did all of this on our own, and it took a lot of hours of just watching YouTube videos, reading websites, reading forums, and all of that. And so that book that we're talking about,
and you can use it, but it's costly.
It's very expensive. And I remember we had done everything, and then Ibrahim wanted to use an immigration consultant just to
because I go through.
He's that type of person. I was like, babe, you have done the most research I've ever seen in my life. You can probably answer any question anybody has. Trust me, we do not need an immigration consultant. You can do it. So I had a lot of confidence.
There are some cases, depending on your situation, you might have a complicated situation, and complicated situation could be various things. Maybe a divorce, a previous marriage, a step brother that's in Canada and you're trying to claim, but so many different situations for different people. If you have a straightforward application, it might be worth it, but it's not cheap. There are some people who have paid upwards of 4,000, 5,000 Canadian dollars to immigration lawyers for their services, and
that doesn't even
include all the other things. And that's just for their services, and you still have to go get the documents. They just compile the application.
Yeah, so that is the end of it. If you're still at the end of this very long video, then please hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed our conversation, hit the like button. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments below, or you can send me a message on Instagram, and then we will have a follow-up video trying to answer any of the questions that you guys have. But
definitely.
It was a pleasure chatting with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Ciao.